Welcome to Change in the Coalfields. My name is Brandon Dennison. I'm your host. This is a podcast by Coalfield Development. And this week we have my fellow entrepreneur in residence here at the Marshall University I Center, Collin Meadows, who's the founder and owner of Tech 304.
Yep. Hey, happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, Collin. So you grew up in the area, same as me, right?
Yep. I was born and raised in Huntington, was here until I went to Marshall, and then moved a little bit outside of Huntington, but been here my whole life.
Pretty connected to the place.
Yep.
What'd your parents do?
My mom was a nurse here at Cabell Huntington Hospital, and then my dad worked at River Park Hospital.
Gotcha. And where'd you go to high school?
Cabell Midland.
Same as me.
Yep.
And you're an athlete, is that right, if I remember?
Yep. Yeah, so I ran cross country and played soccer pretty much my whole life, and then once I went into college, I ended up competing in American Ninja Warrior. I rock climbed, and then pretty much...
Oh, time out. You're a ninja.
I am a ninja.
What gets one into the ninja business?
Just having an insane amount of, energy and willing to put your life at risk.
I mean, literally, like, how do you even get interested? You just...
Yeah, so not to jump ahead, because I'm sure you'd get into this.
We'll jump around.
Bit. Yeah. So I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when I was a senior in college, senior in college. So then whenever I was kind of coming around and finally be able to come back to the gym, things like that, because I had 4 treatments of chemotherapy, I wasn't allowed at the gym at that time. So it was like after that kind of...
Because you might get sick.
Because I could get sick more easily, yeah. So once that kind of lifted was right when American Ninja Warrior Season 4 or Season 3 was coming out. And I was watching it, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this. Wow. So I started rock climbing, came down here to the Marshall Rec Center, started rock climbing, made a lot of friends that went out to the Red River Gorge and things like that, rock climbing. So got into that, and that's how I started to train and got on, not that season, but the following season, I ended up on American Ninja Warrior and competing down in Daytona.
So you went, I did not know this about you. So you went from having chemo treatments, not allowed into a gym,
yep,
to Ninja Warrior rock climber
yep,
in like a period of...
I don't know, 8 to 10 months. And then I competed about a year later.
You're clearly, we're going to get into your business in a little bit.
Yep.
I'll make sure we have a chance to talk about that. You're clearly just a very driven person. You want to get the most. And I've seen this even just in like meetings or like we help teach a class. It's you just want to get the most out of every experience that you have. What is it that drives you like that?
I don't know. It's interesting. My mom always said I was either going to be the CEO of a massive company or the leader of a gang in prison. And it didn't matter which one. But I was
trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I was trending in the right. But it was the fact that I was going to be leading. And I always kind of been drawn to like, helping people and leading and kind of managing and mentoring, that kind of thing. So I've always enjoyed that. I've always helped teaching and, helping out where I can. So I think it just kind of is natural for me to keep pushing myself and seeing like what I can get to. And then sometimes to a fault, like I get somewhere that I've tried to get to and it's like, okay, what's next? Like what else can I do?
Hard to enjoy every moment.
Yeah.
Did you have a good experience at Marshall?
Yeah, I love Marshall. I got a double degree, so that was interesting. I decided that with a year and a half left of my 4-year degree, and I was like, I'm not staying for another year. So I ended up busting out the second degree.
Speaking of driven.
Yeah. So I ended up busting out the 2 degrees in the 4-year program under my computer science degree. But I loved it here. I was an RA. I was in a fraternity here. I got involved as much as I could and loved every second of it.
For folks who are listening that maybe are not from the area, can you just say a little bit about like what Marshall means to this community?
Yeah, so Marshall is really the backbone of really Huntington and all the surrounding areas, and really even beyond. Anytime we travel out, you see someone with a Marshall shirt, and immediately you hear "Go Herd" or we are. It doesn't matter where you are. Like Marshall stays with everyone in this community, and you really become part of that whenever you're here. And then for me, it was special to actually become part of Marshall by being an RA, helping the students out in a more meaningful way than just being a fellow student.
And now you're back as an entrepreneur in residence, mentoring future entrepreneurs.
Yep, yeah, and I was, as soon as I talked to Dr. Ng about that, I was like, yes, anything I can do. And then the entrepreneur
quick yes.
In residence came up, and it was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. I'll definitely do it.
So walk us through, you graduate Marshall, and then you launch your own company, right? So walk us through how you get from that to there?
Yeah, so while I was here at Marshall, I have a degree in computer science. So I started learning how to develop mobile apps and do various other things that wasn't necessarily in the curriculum, but I was just interested in as being a technologist. So I started doing that freelance, getting paid to learn, which is fantastic. And then continuing that, I ended up moving into a role with Dell, with their security team at Dell. Now it's SecureWorks, but worked there for several years, and then we went to explore.
Like remotely?
Remotely, yes. I've actually, fun fact, I've never worked in an office, ever. But after Dell, we started.
Such a technologist thing to say.
I know. When during COVID and everything, I had people reaching out like, I don't know how you've done this for so long. And I'm like, well, don't worry. One day I'll need advice on how to go to an office every day, I'm sure.
You can sit down and just start freaking out.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so after Dell, we were exploring potentially working with startups or acquiring startups, and I just got the chance to go to a startup in DC that we were looking into. And once I got there, I loved the company, loved the people working there. Dell decided to not go with them, and I left Dell and went to the startup to work there. So that was my introduction into like startup tech, and then it just kind of blew up from there. I don't know that I could go back to like a fully corporate job again, or at least not for a while.
Too much fun. There's like the fast pivot. You can have a conversation with a client and they're like, hey, we want this. And literally everything you've been working on for 2 months, it's like, okay, everyone stop. We're going to work on this one thing this client wants because they're going to sign this deal next week and we have to have it next week. So it's just a lot different. Like you have more flexibility, you have more ownership, and it's just a faster pace. A little bit more pressure too, though, right?
It's a lot more pressure, yeah. And you really feel like you're giving back to the company and the product and the customers. So it's like every single day you're working, in my opinion, you have more of a reason to really push to get something done. While in a bigger setting, like when I was at Dell, it was like, yeah, we want this thing, but nothing's going to happen because we're this behemoth of a tech company. They're not going to leave us. But a startup, you lose that one deal. Like you don't know necessarily when that next big deal is going to come.
End the company.
Yeah, it could just destroy the company. So,
say a little bit more. So for folks who've maybe not been part of a startup, just the culture of a startup and the camaraderie.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun. Like everyone knows. I mean, whenever I started, the name of the company was GroupSense that I ended up going to. I was the first full-time employee hired. So it was me and 3 founders and a few like contractors or part-time employees. And then we started hiring people. I had a huge part in hiring the rest of my team at that time. It's just like I knew every single person in the company. And not just like knew their name, like I knew their entire story. I knew where they came from.
Care about.
Yeah, their kids. Like I would ask, hey, how's this, this thing going on with your wife or like your kid or whatever. And we knew everything going on with everyone. So really, I don't like when companies say like we're a big family, because a lot of times it's not actually meant like that. It's more of, a lot of times you hear that and it's almost pressure to be involved more. Like they're using it almost as a weight to get you to...
Excuse to make you work all day Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. But in a startup setting, or at least a small startup setting, you really are a lot more of like a tight-knit group of friends where everyone knows so much about you. Like they, in most cases, they really do care about what's going on. And for both reasons, one personal and then one professionally, if something goes on with you and you're not there, there's going to be an impact. So it's a lot different.
You have a value that I've seen you speak to about your business that I wonder if it came from this business, which is that everyone takes out the trash.
Yep.
Could you speak to that?
Yeah, I don't know if it was this one. I think it was the one I went to next after GroupSense. I went to a company out of Baltimore called Terbium Labs, and the CEO there was fantastic. He always talked about wanting to build a company that he always wanted to work for, and he said he did that. He finally built a company that he would love to work for, but due to investor relations, being the CEO, all this stuff, he said he didn't get to work for the company that he built to achieve that goal. But he always said, no one's too good to take out the trash and all of that. And it really comes down to just, everyone willing to help out, do whatever it is. There's no, oh, that's not my job kind of thing. And, the intern should take care of that. Like none of that kind of sentiment was really part of the culture there. And oftentimes you see that throughout startups. Like that is a common feeling. I never had heard it said quite like he had said it, but that is a very common feeling that it's like, oh, anything happens, you're going to go help. Like I am in the technical side, but there's plenty of times I helped out marketing with, something with the website, or, helped out sales with something going on with their email or whatever it might be. And I'm not IT, so it's not something that I actually do day in and day out, but it's something that I am probably more knowledgeable about than that individual at that time.
And that makes you better at what you do.
Exactly. Yep.
So you went from Marshall to Dell.
Yep.
To DC.
To Baltimore.
To Baltimore.
Yep. And then after that was whenever I started Tech 304. So that was in 2019. Started the company to really bring everything that I learned from the startup space, which the whole time I was contracting or, advising different companies that I had come into contact with, or helping in whatever way to learn as much as I could. I often say I want to know as much as I can about as much as I can in the tech space, which is a very large statement in the tech space.
Tech space is like, that's a space.
Yeah, it's a space, and it doesn't stop growing. But I then started my own company to really bring back that whole startup feel that I had, learned and experienced in these other areas, whether it be Seattle or Atlanta, DC, Baltimore, all these places that I visited that we don't necessarily have here in West Virginia. So I wanted to bring all that back and find a way to either A, help startups, technical startups, grow in the state, or B, find a way to hire people in the state to help other startups grow. And specifically focusing on startups just because that was an area that I had seen a lot of technology that was almost thrown together, and then it either didn't go well, or founders lost a lot of money because of the way they built it, or, just different scenarios that I thought that I'd find a way to help.
So stereotypically, and I don't know, I haven't done the research to say if this is accurate or not, but two words that many people would probably not associate with West Virginia would be startup and technology.
That is true.
So how's it going for you?
So it's going pretty good. We did pivot a little bit for exactly what you just said, is there's not a lot of startups, or at least technical startups. We have a lot of sweaty startups, as I know you're familiar with, so like a lot of trade-based startups that are doing well, in my opinion, that I've talked to a lot of people there. But when you get to technology-based startups, there isn't a huge group of people here. And if there are, I have probably talked to them or, been in contact with them in some way, just because there's not too many of us that are doing very complicated technology-based things. So we ended up pivoting a little bit. And actually this past March, I don't even know if you've heard of this, but this past March, I started a company called Rev Labs, LLC, with a partner that I met through Tech 304. So that kind of spans it out a little bit more. So where Tech 304 would focus on startups and helping build technology for startups, Rev Labs is really focused on helping businesses build custom software to deliver what, almost like an operating system for their business, which our first client was here in West Virginia, which was fantastic. But basically we go in and there's these large platform as a service platforms that you can get, like say Salesforce. That's just massive. Like it can probably do what you want, but it's going to be, a headache. You're going to have to hire people just to learn how to do it. You can kind of wiggle around it, but you have no flexibility. It's exactly what it is, and that's it. And then you have the niche solutions where it's like you can do one or two things you want. You might need two or three of these solutions, but it's much more focused on like your exact industry, things like that. So what we do is we're kind of in that middle ground of providing you all the flexibility of that big platform as a service, while giving you all the customization of the niche service while bringing those all together. And it's very much developed for your business. So we go in, we learn your business, we have extensive lead time on how to actually learn about what it is you're doing, so we can build a product and prototype with you as we go to build what it is that you're looking for to help grow revenues or cut costs or just become more efficient across the board. There's a lot of aspects to it when we go to build it.
So if folks want to learn more about either, where can they go?
So Tech 304, you can email me at Collin, collin.meadows@tech304.com. And on Rev Labs, the website might be up by the time this is up, so you can go to revlabs.io, or you can email me at collin@revlabs.io.
The startup bug never fades.
Yep. That's true. Just constantly involved with a ton of things here.
You must have a supportive family.
Yep. Yeah, and of course, almost my whole family. So I am one of four. I have two older brothers, one younger sister. Everyone but my oldest brother is local. My oldest brother lives up in New York, but tries to travel down as much as he can. And then everyone else is here. We generally get together with my side of my family once a week. So my daughters and like my nephew or my nieces can all get together and have like dinner together. And then same thing on my wife's side. Her whole family is local. So we pretty much do the same thing with both of them where we're kind of all together. Everyone knows what's going on, or, you know, if you need anything, they're there.
Tight knit.
Yep, exactly.
How keyed in are you on the broadband conversation in West Virginia, and what are your thoughts about broadband?
Yeah, I go in and out just because I'm not. There's some things I don't.
It's like in the headlines
Yeah.
every other day, and it's sort of hard to follow, like what's actually going to lead to something and what's actually just chatter.
I have a lot of conversations with people about it, some of which I don't know are accurate or not, like just because where it is in the legislative system and everything. Like I'm not keen on that part. But it is very clear that our broadband's not where it needs to be. Like we need more speed, we need more, you know, availability across the state. Like there's a ton of issues with the internet here, and just bringing businesses in. Like especially today, we need internet. Like if I were to do anything, and it's like, oh well, the internet is 25 or even 50 megs up, which is what people would probably love to have around here. In some cases, you can't even get that. The business isn't going to come. Like it's just not going to be what that business needs. So I haven't stayed up with it inside of, the legislative system, but on the outside, I've talked to a lot of people about it.
Are not there yet.
Right. Exactly.
So I think it's cool you call yourself a technologist. That's a cool word. And I wonder, like, if somebody's listening, technology could be intimidating.
Yep.
Especially if you don't grow up around. I mean, we talk about broadband, and there's some parts of the state we don't even have like cell phone service still, let alone broadband internet.
Yep.
And then if you want to talk about like meta augmented reality, like you literally might as well be on Mars.
Yeah.
What's your advice to someone who maybe feels uncomfortable with technology but knows they need to learn more about it? What do you say?
Yeah, there's a lot of different resources in the state. Actually, last year I was doing I was a guest on the WSAZ Studio 3 to just kind of give insights on.
I saw those. That was great. Yeah.
It was just
You're natural.
Thank you. It was pretty much to give insights on like the security side of things of like, don't just put your credit card anywhere and don't do this. So, there are different groups. That was WSAZ. So they were trying to get help out to, their viewers. And there are places all through West Virginia and Marshall and RCBI, all these places that do have resources that can help you with those. So if you are comfortable getting online, sometimes that can be actually more dangerous if you're not super familiar with things. So it's probably better to go to even like a local library or something like to start learning from someone else that might have a little bit more experience than you, just because unfortunately there are a lot of scams and scammers online. And if you're not comfortable with it right now,
be careful.
Be careful, yeah.
What about for a business owner who maybe feels behind the technology curve, knows that's a disadvantage economically, wants to try and catch up, short of like call Tech 304, sign here.
Tech 304, Red Labs are great now. So there are actually several initiatives inside of the government that here in West Virginia that are helping with that. So RCBI is a good resource. Depending on what you're doing, they might be able to help. And if not, they would be happy to connect you with people that can help.
Yep.
There's the West Virginia High Tech Foundation. They do a lot. I actually just had a conversation with someone today that's working with them.
Oh, cool.
And there are just different groups of people that are truly just trying to help businesses get online or maybe start an e-commerce site or, get online scheduling if you do like in-home services. All of those kinds of things. There are actually a lot of West Virginia government-based agencies and groups that are trying to help businesses kind of come into the more modern age of like the internet and how we use it.
You're sort of uniquely positioned to observe business trends in the state, given your business, being a business person yourself. What are some areas of our state's economy that you're seeing some movement and feeling hopeful about?
We really do see a lot more on the tech side now. So 2 years ago, whenever I started Tech 304, it was kind of hard to find a whole lot going on here. There just wasn't a lot happening. And then really with COVID, a lot of these people that had jobs that were rooted here or originally came from here and then left for the jobs, they can now work remotely. So a lot of people are coming back for different reasons. We do still have work to do on like the overall migration, but COVID definitely helped people come back to our state. That if they had the choice, I could have my job from New York and then live in West Virginia. A lot of people like that. So I am seeing more and more of those people who have pretty much left the state, gotten exposed to different things, and then come back. You see a lot of them kind of trying to build something and move things forward and trying to keep it in the state. So he didn't leave, but one project that I'm working on is Analytica Legalis. It's a legal technology software. We're actually going to be in D.C. at
a sweet name.
Yeah, it's Legal Analytics. That's what it stands for. But we're going to be in D.C. next week for ILTACon, which is a legal tech conference. But that's actually founded by
another crazy name.
Yeah, I know.
It's like Matrix stuff here.
Trying to remember what the I is. Maybe International Legal Tech Association. I think ILTA. But Luke Yingling is my co-founder. He was the originator of the idea, and is basically analyzing judges on why they make certain decisions. Not necessarily what decisions they made in the past or like any trends there. It's really trying to understand the judge from an artificial intelligence point of view and understanding what it is that they're likely to make a decision on based off of different characteristics and indicators. But his whole thing, one reason that I jumped on board as soon as I heard about it is he was like, I want to build this thing and I want to keep it in West Virginia. And he graduated from WVU Law. He is
Nice.
Based around here. He went to Cabell Midland. And he just has that connection of wanting to keep that business here. And I'm seeing more and more of that. Some of those people might have left and now came back. But a lot of people do kind of have those roots here, and they want to help as much as they can, even if they're not necessarily living here. I'm seeing a lot more of that happening.
It's exciting.
Yep.
Technology in education, both K-12 and higher ed.
Yep.
Thoughts on that and how to do it well?
Yeah, I think.
And as an added background on that, like some of our crew members in Coalfields training program, most are enrolled in the community college and really struggle with online.
Right.
They just, on par, on balance, most do way better in a classroom setting. And I just wonder, what is that we're uncomfortable with technology? Is that the instructors aren't really equipped to make that work?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a big group of factors. I know I never took one online class for my entire time here at Marshall. I didn't take a single one. Because you
didn't want to, or it wasn't
because
offered?
I didn't want to. Because I knew if it was up to me to do all my coursework without having to go to a specific place, it was very unlikely that it would have happened.
Know thyself.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I might have gotten things done, but I wouldn't have had the same experience that I got now. I wouldn't have sat next to the people I ended up making friends with and ended up pushing ourselves forward if I was at home by myself, or even at the library with other students, but not in the same mindset as everyone in the same room. So I think that's one big thing whenever you're going to remote learning. And even now there's a lot of stuff going on in the remote learning space as COVID has kind of pushed us into it a lot harder. But if it's just like online classes, I don't think we do it nearly as well as we could. Udemy is a big one. They have a few sponsored college courses. I think they have a whole program through Georgia Tech University. There's different things like that they are trying to do better on.
Yep.
But whenever you get into I can't speak to what Marshall does now, but then whenever I was in school, Marshall would pretty much put up PowerPoints. It's like, okay, here it is, and then you kind of go through it, and then you do the assignment. Sometimes you get on there, watch a video of the instructor, things like that, but it's still not. It's not really interactive.
Right.
It's all on your own.
It's static.
Yeah, it's very static, and if you don't follow it, then you have to send an email. It's not the conversation you would have in a classroom. Because I know several times I would go up to the professor after class or talk to other students in my class, but it's because they were right there. If they weren't there, I had to send an email or even a message in some other capacity. It's now I have to wait for them to be able to respond, and then it becomes asynchronous conversation, and how long does it take for you to get the answer you need, all of that. So I think that's one big problem is the way we go about teaching online is not even remotely close to how we teach in person. Mm-hmm. So we need to get those closer together. And then the other side is whenever people present technology in elementary schools, middle schools, their big go-to is, we're just going to give everyone an iPad. we're going to give everyone a computer. And it's like, well, that's great.
So
like,
we can watch cat videos on YouTube.
yeah, it's like that's a great solution to give them the technology, but that doesn't actually help them with their learning. It just allows them to access the learning, and that's a whole nother gap. Is like that's not enough. It's like just giving them the tech isn't enough to actually help them learn with that technology.
Rapid fire. I know for a fact a lot of people who listen are business owners themselves or in management. Right. So I'm gonna needle you for some free advice, and if you don't want to answer because it's billable, then just feel free to cut me off.
Okay.
Website advice: how to have an actually good, valuable website.
Yeah, web designers are great. You can find designers that'll build a website for several $1,000s, and a lot of times that's really valuable if you're doing a more complicated website. But if you're doing a, some mostly static landing page like website where they go to it, they see information about what you're doing, phone number, email, maybe a contact us form, don't really need to spend that much on it if you want to hire someone else. If you don't want to hire someone else, you have WordPress.com, Square.com. There's several kind of drag and drop solutions that you can actually do it yourself.
Save a lot of money.
Save a lot of money. At least get something up. Like you definitely want a website, especially today. You want to do a Google My Business profile, except they just changed that. It's now Google Business Profile. You want one of those because that's what's going to help people find you online if you're a local service. So if you're like a plumber, and you're doing a certain service area, you want to be in there with the right details. And that's going to help you when people search on Google for plumber near me or, something like that.
CRM advice.
CRMs is a big one. So if you have a lot of customers and want to automate communication with them or anything like that, CRMs are invaluable, but you just want to make sure you don't break the bank using them. There's a lot that cost a lot of money, and then there's some that don't cost a lot of money but don't give you a lot of functionality. So it's really just evaluating it. I love HubSpot. I'm a big fan of HubSpot. Don't know anything about their pricing. So if it's too expensive, then, don't do it. But, there are different things you can do. Even just initially, just like having a secure spreadsheet of your...
that was my next question.
Yeah, of your customers' details.
Security.
Yep. Security.
Digital security.
Yep, that's a huge one.
Well, you are a ninja. Could be like physical building.
Yeah,
it could be.
And what's funny is even in the
personal security
the security space, like hackers, a lot of times there's a similar term for ninja.
Yeah.
So it all comes full circle.
It's too good.
Security is obviously extremely important, especially today. Really, the biggest thing is training. If I had to pick anything, is because once you understand like the risks, so a lot of people will click links not thinking about them in emails, and that's not necessarily great. Using debit card or credit cards just kind of anywhere, it's like, oh well, it looked right, so that's putting you at danger. Kind of double checking everything whenever you come to things on the internet. That's the big one. Is just like double checking. If you get an email from your boss that says, this is very common. That says, hey, I need you to send me, $500 of Amazon gift cards for a client that I'm in a meeting with right now. Can't talk. And it's like, okay, so they go and do it because their boss just told them to. But then you talk to your boss 30 minutes later and it wasn't him. It's like everything just needs double checked. In 99.9% of the cases for that example, they're not going to lose the deal over Amazon gift cards. Like if you really think through
just take a minute, breathe.
Yeah. Just think about it a little bit. And then there are technical security practices you can put in place, but really the biggest thing is just training. Because I think it's like 96% of security incidents are actually caused by social engineering, which is where someone...
I did not know that. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because I've been in a lot of meetings, like we need digital security, and there's like very expensive products, some of which may not be a terrible idea still yet. But if you don't invest in the training and the knowledge, the best software in the world won't fix.
Exactly. Yeah, if you have MFA, Microsoft came out. I was like an interim CTO for a small MFA company about 3 years ago, and we built a solution for managed service providers to add MFA, which is multi-factor authentication, into all these different companies. And a research study came out from Microsoft that said 99.9% of security breaches could have been avoided by just turning on MFA. And it's just crazy that so many people, they talk about how, how inconvenient it is to do, but it takes an extra 20 seconds. And if you're on the same session, then, you only do it once, all this stuff. but it would save so much by just turning that on. So even that, like once you really learn it, it's like the training and then something so simple as like a password policy that's not ridiculous. You don't need 26 characters of all random characters and MFA. It's just like, do a little bit in training and you're probably going to knock off majority of the people. And that's even saying that you're really at risk, which is a whole nother conversation.
What's technology on the horizon that we should all be really excited about, or that you're excited about?
Yeah, so I'm interested in the whole metaverse. I don't know what it's going to be like. It's a little terrifying because we're already so committed into technology that you can kind of see it.
Just in case somebody say a little bit about what that is.
So it's pretty much like an artificial world that's tied in together with the real world. So there's recently...
Sounds pretty creepy.
Exactly, yeah. And you can be someone else. You can be yourself. You can, it's very different, and it's very new. So, of course, it sounds ridiculous, like, to a lot of people, but there's a lot of people that love it. And, like, there is a lot of value in it, advertising. Like, there's a ton of good things that can come out of it. But there's also a lot of bad social impacts that I can foresee happening, and that's the thing that I'm not sure about. On the other side of it is just like blockchain as a whole is a great technology for decentralizing a lot of things. So, everyone gets up in arms with how large some of these tech companies are. You have Amazon, Facebook, all these people that have just massive amounts of data on all of us and like what they actually know. There was a book called The Four that I read several years ago. It's a little outdated now, but it said Facebook knows more about your friends than you do. Amazon knows more about what you want than you do. Google knows your deepest secrets that you wouldn't even tell a best friend. And then there was one more that I can't remember, but it's basically just saying because of the data they have and the continuous data they have, they know things that really you might not even know about yourself. Because you don't think about them. But whenever we take all this data over, say like Amazon, 10 years of purchases, when you purchase them, how you purchase them, how many times you looked at things, like there's just a lot of data there that helps Amazon be Amazon. Like they do give you better suggestions, like they are doing a good thing for their service, but like there's a lot that people are worried about with the amount of data.
Whole other
that they
ethical
have.
realm we haven't really established.
Exactly. So if we decentralize a lot of those things, not necessarily saying Amazon needs to, or even Facebook or Google need to, not getting into that, but just saying like the more things like that we can decentralize and kind of spread out, gives us less of the concept of this company is evil, this company wants to take over the world mentality, because they're no longer the ones who house that. It's much more decentralized. It's spread out across the place.
Democratic.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
Yep. Hopefully.
Yeah. So my last question that I like to ask everybody: You're an Appalachian.
Yep.
Proud of it. Lifelong. Choose to be here.
Yep.
What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen here in Appalachia, and then what are some of the biggest changes that you still hope to see in the future?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot more movement of at least in the Huntington to Charleston corridor, which is where I'm primarily at, that you see a lot more of this push towards some of the things that I always felt that West Virginia was a little bit behind. It seems like we're catching up faster. So we've always kind of been a few steps behind on the social aspect and like different things that we have going on. But it seems like we're catching up a lot quicker in the last, 2 to 4 years or whatever it might be to kind of enact some of these things we've learned from other cities, whether that be, different festivals or, even just some of the things we're allowing inside of cities. And, it just seems like it's more like those other places. Not as big, of course, but it is becoming more, I guess more.
Would you say the quality of life in this area from when you were a kid and maybe even when you were in college to now has gotten better?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how many times my wife and I will drive down here. It's like, how awesome would this have been if it was here when we were here? So that
restaurants.
Yep. Restaurants, even just like the events that go on, it just seemed like there wasn't a whole lot that if Marshall didn't put it on, then it didn't happen. Right. But now that's not the case. There are, we have 9th Street Live, which is fantastic. It's a lot of fun. I think they should keep it going longer than they do, but there's just a lot more that's happening in the cities and even on the outside. And we do have that huge focus now with the big push to West Virginia tourism, to call out our state parks, things like that we did. Like my wife's family loved state parks, so we would go there on a lot of like vacations and everything. But growing up, we didn't really go to a lot of those. So it was just like, I don't know if there's more education around them. If I got lucky with my in-laws, don't let them listen to this, but, or like what it really is that we had that opportunity. And then now there's obviously within the state, there's a big push to get people to come in and visit those places. And I think we're trying to do more at those places to draw those people in.
And you're doing your part to contribute. So, I mean, thank you for being a creative, persistent entrepreneur and for being engaged here at Marshall as a fellow EIR and for spending some time on the podcast, Collin.
Absolutely.
Keep it going.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.